Joining me now on the Knicks Film School Podcast, he is a returning guest. He has been on the show quite a few times, and more than that, he has contributed to Knicks Film School back when we had a website, and will be contributing to Knicks Film School again. But we're going to talk about that in a moment. You could hear him as one of the hosts, the many co-hosts of Talkin Knicks, part of the John Boy network. Shout out to them. They're doing great work. He's a contributor to Daily Knicks for the original Knicks Film School himself, JB. And once again, he's going to be doing some stuff on the regular now for Knicks Film School. Tom Piccolo. Did I get the last name right?
Oh, man, we just had such a talk about it. Piccolo.
God damn it. God
all
damn
good,
it.
Man.
What is this? I even wrote P-I-C in capital letters, and I can't. Piccolo. Tom Piccolo.
That's it.
Now maybe
Jonathan,
I'll never forget.
Thank you for having me, man. It's good to be here.
I don't. You have, even though it's been a while, I don't think of you as a guest. I think of you as just somebody I could shoot the shit with about the Knicks, even though I can't pronounce your last name for some reason.
Hey, no offense taken, and no, feel the same way. And yeah, when you list out all my accomplishments there, or just like credentials, it feels pretty. What's the Costanza line? Like, you take everything I've done in my life and condense it down into one day. It looks decent.
I think. Well, you also, as many of us do, have stuff that you do aside from Knicks content creation, which we talked about for a while before, so we don't have to talk about now. But you are one of the more accomplished individuals that I ever get a chance to talk to on this podcast or anywhere. But even aside from that, your Knicks stuff is great, which is why before we actually talk about the Knicks, I don't know, how should we do this? So I would like to formally announce that Tom will be contributing, I think, on a fairly regular basis to the Knicks Film School newsletter, because I tweeted it a week or two ago. I think he is the best Knicks content creator out there. I always learn something from everything he writes. And I think you will learn something from stuff that he writes too, as well as stuff that he says, which is why I have him on the podcast now. So welcome aboard, Tom.
And
Congratulations.
First of all, thank you very much. No, I'm super excited to be working with you. I will say that when you use superlative words like best, I can't go along with that in good faith. Like, I do appreciate that you're.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Your Knicks optimism kind of, trickles down to your feelings towards my writing. No, I definitely appreciate that, though.
It's my pleasure. Trust me. Okay, so I wanted to, we had talked about doing this podcast for a little while, and I wanted to hold off until the Knicks got, a fair number of games on their belt, because I feel like your analysis is so good that I didn't want to waste it on just like preseason games or just like the first or second game. So now we have 4 games. And I'm sitting here and I'm wondering, like, okay, there's a few different directions we could go. And yet I still feel like 4 games in, I'm not 100% sure what's real and what's fake. And in full disclosure, we're recording this at 5:30 on what is today, Wednesday night, New Year's Eve, as it were. And I just spent the last 2 hours watching clips or watching film of the Knicks defense against the Cavs last night, in which they gave up 80, whatever it was, 86 points, 85 points, something like that. Nice number. They're ranked 10th in the league in defensive efficiency as we sit here and record this podcast. And yet, I'm not sure if it's right for us to sit here and be like, wow, let's talk about the Knicks' awesome defense. So do you want to start there and we could go from there?
Yeah. So let's talk about the Knicks defense. I mean, one thing we were talking about on Twitter a little bit was just how real their 3-point defense has been this season. Because I think you noted that they actually have like the best 3-point defense in the league right now. And we were kind of just trying to figure how that's the case and whether that's actually even remotely sustainable. And so one stat I dug up is that the Knicks opponents are shooting just 26% on wide open threes, and that the Knicks are actually giving up 22 wide open threes per game, so that's not just the lowest percentage in the league, but also the second highest number of wide open threes allowed per game. So that's pretty damning in terms of like, and I think your counterpoint on Twitter was like, maybe those wide open threes are to the right players. You want to be giving up these threes to guys who, you're conceding threes to guys who maybe you want to have take those wide open threes.
Yeah, a little bit. And then I watched the Cavs game, and I don't know if that's really the best example because I'm not sure that the Cavs have anybody that you'd necessarily say is worth like fearing. I know Sexton was, what was he last year? 38, 39%, whatever. It was a good number, but I don't think anybody at this point categorizes Colin Sexton as like a dead eye 3-point shooter. And Milwaukee had just a very off night, but again, with their lineup now, it's like I'm not, I don't know that there's even anybody there now that I really fear. So this is going to be really interesting when they play a team that has guys that that have gravity, right? That can really extend the floor. I guess where I'm torn, and I'm curious what your opinion on this is like, clearly this is by design. When I say that, I mean, Tibbs wants to wall off the paint, which we could talk about in a sec because that hasn't been happening for a variety of reasons. But he wants to wall off the paint, and he knows they're going to give up threes, and he wants to make those threes as difficult as possible. But he's going to concede the fact that, look, in all likelihood, they are going to give up a lot of 3-point shots. He just wants to make them more difficult. So I'm okay with that approach for a young team. And I also understand that there's going to be some growing pains, like just from a philosophical, like this is one of the youngest teams in the league. He plans on being here for a number of years, building the thing from the ground up, all of that stuff. Are you okay with kind of the approach, or would you, do something differently in your perfect world?
No, I think that I'm with you. Like the approach does make sense conceding these threes. I mean, I think that, you hear these teams like the Bucks and the Raptors who give up all these 3-point attempts, but consistently have one of the best defenses in the league. I think, what was it, Zach Lowe talking on his podcast about the Van Gundy brothers being sort of enamored with that Bucks defense model. And yeah, it makes sense insofar as you actually are walling off the paint and doing just that. And I think, probably the bigger issue is that the Knicks have just been giving up so many points in the paint. Some of that is due to points off turnovers. The Knicks have been turning the ball over a lot. Other teams are going the other way and getting a lot of easy layups and dunks that way. But even in half court and transition, like they are still giving up a lot of shots at the rim. And I think that's probably the bigger concern long term than even the 3-point shooting is, because we know that teams are going to start hitting more shots against the Knicks. So that
goes to that saying. Yeah,
that's not the concern. It's more those looks at the rim.
Yeah, and it's interesting because they have they have Mitchell Robinson, and we could talk about Mitch for a second because I think there's a disconnect amongst. So I feel like the national media looks at Mitch and they're like, oh, he's just a guy that will get numbers in terms of his block shots. He's not a good defender yet. And then fans look at him and he's like, oh, he should have made the all defense team last year. And I think the truth on Mitch lies somewhere in between. I think he's more than just a shot blocker. I think he has made progress in other areas. I think I've personally been impressed with him this year. But at the same time, to act like he is ever going to be of the level of a Rudy Gobert, who is is there anybody else in the league who's like a walking, like you have a top 10 defense if Rudy Gobert's on your team, because he's just, your teams aren't going to score at the rim. Like other than him, I don't know if there's anybody else. So it's like an unfair comparison, but like Mitch isn't that yet. Certainly, whether he can ever get there, we'll see. But you have him, and this has been happening already. And I think, I don't know, part of me is like, it's partially the matchups, like Sabonis, Embiid, Drummond, Giannis are just, they're not great matchups for Mitch. But the other part is like, is this like Julius Randle's the other guy who's playing, and Obi Toppin, who we haven't seen a lot of, but like, let's stick with Randle. Like, I don't know, like what's the ceiling? Like, what's the ceiling of this team as like a team who's going to wall off the paint? I'm not sure what that answer is. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the stats right now, and it looks like they are 22nd in rim protection, allowing about 66% field goal percentage at the rim this year. So, I mean, 22nd is nothing to write home about. But it's also
that's
not
field goal. That's the percentage at the rim. There, the frequency is like I looked it up before on cleaning the glass. It's 25th or 26th. It's not what you want.
Yeah, and in terms of actual just raw attempts per game, NBA.com has them 28th. They're giving up a lot of looks to the rim. No question about it. I mean, I was checking out Randall's stats, and last year he was towards the bottom of the league in rim protection among bigs. I think only Kevin Love had a worse allowed field goal percentage at the rim. So like he was really bad last year at that. But we've seen this year, like he's kind of a different player. So
on offense,
certainly on offense, I know you've been definitely commenting on all the business decisions he's been making on the defensive end. So it's not
there was a few
posterized. Yeah. But the question is like, can he actually improve on that end as he's changed his mindset on offense? Can Thibs get him to change his mindset on defense to an extent? And I'm not putting anything past Thibs at this point. Like he's been a magic worker. So, I think it's possible on the Mitch point. I mean, I don't know that he ever has to be even necessarily all that close to Gobert, because I think a lot of his value comes on that. The idea of him being switchable and like being able to move his feet on the perimeter much more so than Gobert does, which is valuable, but it's not like the Knicks are running a super switch heavy scheme.
No, they're not. They don't want, like we've seen Mitch repeatedly in situations where his man gets out on the perimeter and he's like, he keeps a foot in the paint. He does not, like, with some exceptions, like he knows where he has to be and he is staying there and he's staying down and he's like, he knows what his job is. Maybe that changes though. I guess that's what I was kind of getting at before. Like long term, like Tibbs, whatever he's doing, it's groundwork for something that theoretically in time will get bigger and better. I just, I'm more thinking of like from a theoretical perspective, is it worth it to lay the groundwork for this? I think the answer is yes. I think this personnel, and this is maybe a good time to get into a discussion of like, Randall and his long-term possibilities here. I think maybe that's different because I don't know where. So 4 games in, where are you at on the build a statue for Julius Randle sliding scale? Where and I don't even know what's on the other end at this point.
I mean, there's a couple different ways to look at it. First of all, there's no way he's going to continue this 3-point shooting or even some of these mid-range step backs he's been hitting. It's not sustainable, but the nice part is like it doesn't have to be for him to be a plus player. Like just the fact that his mindset has changed so much. And I was doing a little research myself because I was thinking about writing it, but yesterday your newsletter just really hit it out of the park, and I was like, all right, okay. Like it is kind of that. Did you ever see that South Park episode where the Simpsons did it? It's like everything.
Oh my God, no! How did I miss that?
Well,
that sounds great.
Thing was like Simpsons did it. That's how it is with you. It's like you're writing every single day. So it's like, Macri did it. But
I'm sorry, my bad.
No, all good. But I mean, just you look at Randall's, just his whole mindset on the offensive end has changed, and I know I have a bunch of stats here to back that up. It's clear as day. I think that like the biggest one has been out of drives this year. Like so, last season he passed on 31% of his drives. This year, he's passing through 4 games. I know, blah, blah, blah. He's passing on double that, 62% of his drives he's passing out of.
Holy shit. That's a great stat.
It is, right? And this would have gone in an article if you didn't. No, it's all good.
Oh, God.
No. But he actually leads the league among high volume drivers in the passing percentage. It's absolutely nuts. He kind of has a similar stat jump in post passing as well. He's passing much more out of the post ups. It's pretty crazy. So it's nice when the stats back up the eye test. He's just so much more giving and benevolent this year. Like
maybe it's the holiday season that has gotten into him.
I wonder, but I said it on Locked On Knicks. I've said it on Talkin Knicks as well, that I was really worried coming into this with him being in effectively a contract year, just him trying to get his and not worrying so much about development. But it's so nice that this has been positively reinforced, that the way he's playing now has just been lauded by media and fans. Everyone is just like loving what he's doing, and he's doing it the right way. You know what I mean? So it's reinforcing this kind of play, which is the best thing that could possibly happen to the Knicks in a season where we just want to see growth and development from our young guys. That was priority number one. And, Randall has kind of overshadowed the fact that we haven't gotten to see Toppin or Quickly.
Yeah.
And that RJ Barrett has been struggling from the field, but, has improved in other areas as well. But, if you'd have told Knicks fans that, like, before the season started, that
Randall's
Julius Randle is the bright spot, I think a lot of people would have been like, I'm going to tune out. No thanks. But it's been the opposite effect. Like, this has been really fun to watch. And, like, the Knicks are winning some games. It's been very cool.
Yeah, it is. If the goal is to be a great team, which we're God knows how many steps away from that, Julius Randle is going to be coming off your bench, right? Because if it is one of two roles, right? It's this role, which for as great as this is not something that, like, your ceiling is capped. If this is how you're running your offense through Julius Randle, I don't know how else to say it. Or you're kind of putting him out there as a guy who doesn't have to make decisions and doesn't have to think, and literally is just running and cutting and being a human bowling ball and putting the ball in the hoop. And that's, again, a lesser option. So yeah, I'll be curious to see what they do. I avoided having this conversation with Jeremy on Sunday's pod, and I don't want to get too far into it, but, like, I'm going to be fascinated to see how they approach this, because I think, getting back to the defense part of the conversation, I just don't know what your ceiling is going to be as a defense if Julius Randle is playing big minutes for you. I think that's one thing where I'm not sure we've seen a real change. And I don't think that's his fault. I just think he's not that fleet of foot. His awareness isn't great when he has to make, like, a quick, like, oh, wait a minute, there's nobody guarding this guy right over here, let me jump over there. Like, that's not Julius Randle's. It's not in his bag. So I don't know. I'll be if he continues at like 85 to 90% of this level of production, you have to think they could get something good for him, right? Like,
I would think so. If that's the goal, I'm curious to see what will happen there as well. But I mean, like you said, if Randall will be playing minutes with Toppin, it's like, who do you want kind of playing the 4 and who's the nominal 5? Like, who's actually your rim protector there? It's not a great option. That's the thing, is he can get tall and vertical, and his leaping ability is there, and he has to be a high motor guy to as a rookie, and to just make an impression. Like, he's going to have to be playing with a lot of energy. Randall can, he can conserve energy sometimes. He's kind of earned
so
that.
Polite. You are so polite.
but look, I will say I was very concerned about the Randall Toppin fit. I mean, particularly, defense, we all know, but even on offense, just because I was worried that it would just relegate Toppin to a pick and pop 3-point shooter. And I just didn't.
And that's not what you drafted him for. Or if you did, then you're a fucking idiot. So
then you made them right. Yeah. So if Randall can continue hitting threes at any kind of rate, I mean, right now he's hitting, I'm looking at 67% of his threes. It's not going to continue. I don't have to say that, but like, if he can continue to hit some semblance of threes and just, demand that attention from defenses, then that allows you to slot Toppin in as that sort of more rim running big, and even just like a elbow, catch the ball at the elbow, make some nice passes. Like, he's a very good passer. Both Randall and Toppin are very good passers for their positions.
I gotta say, and I know I realize I'm saying this about a guy who's averaging whatever Randall's averaging a game, 7 assists a game. I think Toppin's a better passer, not long term. I think Toppin is the better passer today in terms of his vision, in terms of his ability to pass on the move. Like, that's been the one thing, like, for all of the sky is falling stuff about Toppin, and there may be some validity to some of that. His playmaking is just like, oh God, I love it.
It really has been tremendous. I would say that, like, Randall is just so much better at drawing attention and having defenses collapse on him, so he's able to use his passing more.
Yes.
But I think as far as just raw, straight up vision and just innate passing ability, I would agree with that. That Toppin is better.
I guess I'm thinking, again, we're I always get ahead of myself with this stuff. But if you're thinking long term, and again, the team kind of has to start to think long term because, Randall's value arguably will never be higher than it is right now. And this is my cold take. My cold take is that Obi Toppin's ceiling, first of all, you have to decide, is it worth investing or is it worth rejiggering your future around his ceiling, which they took him with the 8th pick in the draft a month and a half ago. So I have to think to a certain extent that they are thinking about rejiggering their future around his ceiling. That's one. Two, I think his ceiling is as a guy who, if he's playing 35 minutes in a playoff game, 20 of those are coming at center. And you figure out how to make that feasible. And I'm not saying that's easy, but that's where I'm at. And then like regular season Toppin is more like, okay, he's maybe 5 to 10 minutes at center. And then, the rest of the time you're playing him alongside, whatever, Mitch or someone else. So I guess, but I to what you were saying before reminded me of this in terms of getting Toppin in situations where he could be optimally used, because the one thing that has stood out for me on offense for him, aside from the passing, is just more than RJ Barrett even. That dude needs room to work. And if you give him room, I think you're going to get results. And I don't think he's had room yet.
He's definitely not had room. I mean, granted, we're looking at like a 1-game sample. We're factoring in some preseason stuff too. But
even that was enough for me. Like you could, and maybe he's not asserting himself yet. Maybe that'll change things. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, 7 3-point attempts to just 5 2-point. That's not the ratio we're looking for with him. So
no.
Yeah, he definitely wasn't. We can agree he wasn't used correctly. But yeah, I agree with your point on the room. It's just, what kind of, if we're sort of conceding that he can't be a rim protecting big for big minutes at this point, then he has to be playing with a Mitch or a Noel, and those guys are taking up the room where we want Toppin to be. So it's a tricky fit, and that's what Thibodeau's getting paid the big bucks for. But
what about four big pick and roll with 3 shooters, which then maybe that's a good transition into the conversation about, okay, who else should be playing minutes for this team? And 2 guys we've seen a lot of so far, although one of them missed the last game, is Alec Burks. I was going to say Alec Burks and Reggie Bullock. I think a lot of Knicks fans, myself included, were like, maybe Bullock will be part of the rotation this year. Maybe he won't be. Like, Reggie Bullock's playing. He's going to be playing like 30 minutes a night for a while, I think. And I think they need him to. And I think the same could be said of Alec Burks. Where are you at on those 2 guys who are kind of similar?
Yeah, I mean, they're 2-way guys who can shoot, and that's they're pretty few and far between on this Knicks roster. Yeah, I'd say part of me coming into the season was a little lower on Bullock. I thought that Frank could kind of provide that shooting if he got better.
Frankie Flamethrower, but what is he now? He 4? He hit the 4 the other night. He had 1 last night, so he's 5 for. I want to say he's 5 for 9, maybe 5 for 10, something like that from deep.
Oh, he's on fire! And that's what's been making the game so much fun to watch too. But yeah. I mean, Bullock's he's hitting from everywhere, and he's earned it. Like he played a ton of minutes last night, and there was a reason why. He was very necessary out there. And Burks, I would say, is even a little different in that. I mean, coming into the season again, I didn't watch a whole lot of Burks and his several other stops before he got to the Knicks, but he is so good at just pulling up off the dribble, like in pick and roll. I wouldn't say Bullock is any kind of pick and roll player, but Alec Burks can. You've talked about it a little bit before, like partially run an offense. He can lend a hand in being that primary initiator because he is just such a good pull-up jump shooter. It's pretty wild. That's been a huge bugaboo for the Knicks over the past several seasons, is not having someone who can just. I
was about to say the complete lack of a pick and roll game.
Complete lack of pick and roll, and someone who can pull up and hit a 3 if someone goes under, and Alec Burks is that guy. And he's going to be a must-have in a lot of these lineups just for his spacing and his shooting, but also his creating. Yeah,
I don't know how much is going to happen, but so, if you're looking at the question always comes back to shooting. So you have Burks is probably top of the list. I'm still putting Bullock in front of Knox. I don't even know what Knox is. I don't really pay attention to the numbers. It feels like Knox has taken a step with his shot this season. It looks good. I feel good when it comes out of his hands. Maybe that's just me because I want to be high on him, but I don't know. Those are your top three. Putting quickly aside for a second, who I think is kind of in his own category. We're going to wait to see with him. Like those are your three guys who can, like, when you say space the floor, like those are your three guys we're talking about, right?
Yeah, and I would say with Knox, he kind of hurt me a little bit last season just because I think he was at that.
I think he hurt a lot of people.
He was at that 40% mark early through I want to say maybe 7 games. He was like still had a really nice 3-point percentage, and I remember like telling my friends like this guy could get to 40%, and then he just completely tanked it last year. But so I still kind of had my guard up with Knox, though. You know, his shot always has looked pretty.
It has
a lot of arc on it, maybe too much arc. But I think the biggest difference with him is he just looks so much more comfortable, and like the game has slowed down a little bit for him. Because even last year, even when he was hitting shots, it always looked like he was just so overwhelmed by all the action swirling around him. And this year, he looks, people have noted it, he looks like an NBA player. He looks comfortable. He looks more confident, which leads me to believe that 3-point percentage will be more sustainable. He is hitting 40% on 2.5 attempts per game. So,
hey, listen, let's keep it right there.
No need to further delve into that.
That's perfect.
But as far as your floor spacers, that is, I mean, RJ has just, he's a very willing 3-point shooter. Am I worried?
Honestly, we're all friends here.
I feel like it's so unfair to be 4 games into the regular season and say I'm worried about him. It's
not him. I'm not worried about him. The shot is. I mean, listen. Sometimes if Jimmy Butler is his eventual outcome, we should all be dancing in the streets. But sometimes you're Jimmy Butler, and you're just like you're 25% 3-point shooter for your career. And
I think DeMar DeRozan could be maybe even a little bit closer. But like, look, what a leap he's made at the free throw line. Like the fact that looks like it's for real to me. I mean, there's been a lot of attempts. He looks very confident up there. He's hitting 78% now,
which matters so much for him because truly believe. And I know they're playing him at the 3, and I think it's going to be easier for him to get to the line. That's the one. Well, let me ask you, where do you see his, because I think his ideal position on offense and defense may be different answers, but at least on offense, because when he's at the 2, he has these smaller guys guarding him, and you saw him in every game this season. I feel like at least one possession he's taken. So like last night it was Sexton, where he took him down to the post and just he got him to bite.
Yeah, and he got to the line, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there were actually a couple. I was a little critical on Twitter of RJ's post game just because I felt like he was relying so much on his size. Like there was very limited, just very little in the way of footwork or creativity down there. It was just kind of like turnover, right shoulder, and just go up. And there were a couple times where Sexton actually just kind of like stonewalled him, and that worried me just because if he throws a little bit of just a up and under or just like a little bit of a pump fake action, it's just he wasn't doing a lot. He was just like, that was one instance where I wish he just calmed down and was.
He just needs to watch tape of DeRozan.
Yeah, I mean, DeRozan's
watch tape of DeRozan every day.
Unreal. I'm with that. I think that Barrett has a long way to go as far. I think he has a high ceiling as a post player, and like you said, against 2s that would obviously be more useful. It is tricky with him. Like, is he going to be a guy?
He's such a strange fit. That's the thing. That's why when people are like, "You hate RJ Barrett," I'm like, I don't hate RJ Barrett. I just have trouble being like, okay, here is his perfect fit in the modern game. And every time I try to answer that question, I come up against some impediment or is like, it's like, okay, great. You put him at the 2. Okay. So then that takes some shooting off the floor at a position where traditionally you have some shooting on the floor. So it's like, all right, put him at the 3. Well, now bigger guys are guarding him, and it's not like he has the speed to beat those guys, into the paint, which then gets to your point about he just needs to be craftier, which hopefully that comes,
he's playing like straight Morey ball at this point where, and really he's 56% of his shots are coming at the rim. That's in the 100th percentile among wings.
He was in the 88th or 85th or something last year. It was high last year.
Looking at cleaning the glass, it was 92nd. Like this dude is just getting to the rim. But last year he also took a fair amount of mid-range shots. This year he's hardly taken any, just 4% of his shots coming from long mid-range. I don't know. To me, he just because he's been really struggling at finishing around the basket, like he's in the 24th percentile in finishing his shots.
Higher than last year. I think last year was 12th. 14th.
It was just a little bit lower, but
I shouldn't laugh. I'm sorry.
But I do think he needs to develop that mid-range game, because like if the 3-point shot isn't going to come around quite yet, if that's just going to take more work, that's fine. But he has to like be able to pull up and just not. He can't just keep barreling towards the rim and like against set defenses and not getting good looks. You know what I mean?
It annoys me to a certain extent when everybody's like, well, the answer is more spacing. Just give more spacing, and then RJ is going to turn into whatever they think he's going to turn. Like, that's not. Some of this has to be on him.
It'll help, but
it'll help. It'll help. Yes,
it'll also help if he just sometimes a clean 15-foot look is better than like. Yeah, especially with this roster, like the fact that there isn't the spacing, like he has to develop that mid-range game because he can only play with what he's given, and just barreling into these defenses that are completely set and packing the paint. Like sometimes he needs to pull up and hit that 15-footer, and he looked pretty comfortable doing it earlier. And I just want to see him do more of it, because at some point that shooting could potentially translate to behind the arc too. He just has to get that confidence going, because right now, looking at a shot chart, it is dark blue. It is not what you want.
Not, so it is not what you want. And my favorite shot of his all year was when he came off of it was the set that the Thunder always used to run, the two screens on the side of the court, two big setting screens, and he just drained it. It was so smooth. I think it might have been even the preseason, but
I think that was preseason.
Yeah. He's had a couple of those. I
mean, like I kind of get painted as this analytics guy, and so you'd think I would hate mid-range basketball, but like I actually personally, when I play, I try and play a lot. I live in the mid-range. I'm not a big I have such a soft spot to like DeRozan. I know like he's so I think I wrote an article a couple of years ago just about how he's actually a much analytically a better player than people give him credit for, because he gets to the rim so much. He hits his free throws. And
that's a Hall of Famer. He's a NBA Hall of Famer. This is not a question. He's a Hall of Famer.
Hey,
and the Knicks could have drafted him, and they took Jordan Hill.
Look, it's not haunting me, but hey, look.
But Tobias Harris is haunting you.
Anyway, the mid-range game is so necessary for a player of his type. Like we see it with the Kawhis and guys like Jimmy Butler. Like,
no, you need it.
He needs it, and like if the 3-point shot, if he's not going to get that respect this year. I want him to keep taking them. I want him to keep building that. But he needs that mid-range in the arsenal, and I want to see it.
Let's finish up by talking about we'll go one last direction and two different arms or forks, I guess, in the road. We have Emmanuel Quickley, who has not played since the first half of opening night, and we have Frank Ntilikina, who is out for by the time you listen to this, he will have already missed the game that he's going to miss against the Raptors. So I feel like, Frank, listen, I've caught so much shit in the last few weeks because people think I've turned on Frank, and I haven't. It's just about like, I have put my trust in this coaching staff, and it's like if they're seeing whatever they're seeing and they're like, all right, this person deserves to be the X number of man in the rotation, I'm not going to raise hell. Okay. So I will ask you, I guess, 2-part question and we'll finish up with this. Where are you on Frank from what you've seen this season? Do you like what you've seen? Do you love what you've seen? Do you hate what you've seen? And when Quickley is ready to return, which again, maybe he plays by the time people are listening to this, because we're recording this before that Raptor game. Do you think it's as simple as like, all right, Quickley's going to be in the rotation and inevitably Frank is going to be the one to drop out? Or do you see a scenario where that changes?
Well, I think that given the last couple of games, he's actually had an opportunity, especially this last game where he played 16 minutes against the Cavs. Like it did feel like, I mean, really even the game before that too, obviously when he went 4 for 4 from 3, he's been making the most of these opportunities. I think you could quibble with this last game against the Cavs where he maybe passed up some shots he should have taken. And Mike Breen, I think, called him out at least once for doing so. But I mean, when he has taken them, he's looked super smooth and no hesitation, right? I know there was one when the shot clock was winding down. He didn't really have much of a choice, but I mean, there was no thinking twice about it. He put it up, he drilled it. He's shooting 56% from 3 on certainly limited attempts, but
it's funny. He's become the anti Tony Parker, who is his countryman. Tony Parker for half of his career just like refused to take any shot outside of 10, 15 feet.
Right.
And Frank is like, it's like there's a force field around,
he's not getting to the rim. That's for sure. Yeah. So he's 5 of 9 from 3 on the season, then just 1 of 5 from 2. Yeah. He's only hit 1 out of 3 free throws, which was surprising when he was chosen to be the technical foul free throw shooter last night. That was kind of strange, but I'm a sucker for Frank. I know I've another guy I've got a soft spot for. Like, you want an automatic way to do numbers on Knicks Twitter is put out a tweet of Frank, just any hustle play of Frank Ntilikina. I put one out yesterday. It was probably like the best performing tweet I've ever had. Like it was just him stopping a transition attempt from the Cavs. He basically stopped the ball and then sprinted out to the corner and cut Sexton off on the baseline. And I mean, it was an incredible defensive play. He basically guarded 2 people at once in transition.
There was one I was going to put out from Milwaukee where he was digging into the paint and the ball kicked out to a 3-point shooter and he fucking jetted out there as fast as he could and got like a hand in whoever the shooter's face was and the shooter missed. I should have tweeted that out myself so I could have gotten.
You wanted to go viral with it, Mac. Go viral. I mean, look, I tweeted something. Hold on, I tweeted a clip out. This is all in real time. I tweeted to promote the newsletter before a little GIF of Frank drawing an offensive foul in the fourth quarter on. I think he was chasing around. Garland. Let's see how that one did. Maybe this will prove our thing. But anyway, keep going. I'm wondering how many new subs you got after that because like
I think I probably 70 likes. There we go.
I'm telling you, he's like a fan favorite, but also there were just people arguing in my mentions about him too because he doesn't look at the rim enough, and that's just. He kind of is who he is at this point. That's sort of his personality. He's not going to be this hyper aggressive player, but no. When he went 4 for 4 from 3, he was pulling up off a pick and roll, and I don't expect that. The game was kind of out of hand at that point, or at least getting there. There wasn't a whole lot of pressure for him to perform. But look, it's still what you want to see. I really hope that Frank can at least get like 12 minutes or so in the rotation a game. Like, I just think what he does is valuable. He does do some nice distributing out of pick and roll. He moves the ball like, and on defense, he's very smart. He's great at closing out. He keeps his hands up. He's always trying to get deflections. I would just say that so far he has made maybe not the most, but a lot out of his opportunities, particularly the last 2 games. I think he's earned some time to continue doing what he's doing. I
mean, this team will 1000% be worse and a lot worse if this happens. But, if there is a Julius Randle trade scenario where they pick up a draft asset and Randle goes out, Toppin slots into the starting 4, you put Knox at the backup 4, and then you essentially have a wing/guard rotation then becomes your two shooters that we just talked about before, Bullock and Burks, RJ, Frank, Quickly and Austin Rivers, and you send Peyton, the way of the dinosaur. I think that's what a lot of fans want, that 10-man grouping. I think there's an argument for that 10-man grouping, except for the fact that like Randall again is drawing so much gravity. I don't know Like that would be really, really a really tough pill to swallow. But who knows? We'll see. We'll see what happens.
If you had to place money on it right now, do you think that Randall finishes the season with the Knicks?
Oh goodness. I'm not usually stunted into silence on my own podcast. Yes. I think he finishes the season with the Knicks because, and I'm sure I'll do a deep dive on this at some point soon, sooner than it probably warrants being a deep dive done on it. But it's not 19.8 this year. It's 19.8 next year. 18.9 this year is not the easiest salary to move. And I know you're not as you're more on the actual basketball of basketball than the behind, the cap stuff of basketball. So I won't bore you getting into like the machinations of it, but like they're just aren't.
You know me well, Macri. Yeah. As soon as people start talking like trade exceptions, you see my eyes gloss over. I'm just not. I don't have that legal side to me.
I don't know, because they're gonna if this again. Let's assume, like you said, it doesn't need to be this, but it whatever percentage of this, and it maintains, and the mentality stays the way it is. They're gonna want. They're not just gonna give them away. They're gonna want something real, and I just don't know. Again, who thinks that they're a Julius Randle away from winning a championship? Who thinks that they're a Julius Randle away from winning a playoff series? Because I think that matters to a lot of franchises out there. But even that, I'm not sure who that team is that also has A, the salary to send back, and B, the asset to send back. So there's a lot of moving parts. So if I had to bet on it right now, I would bet that he would finish the year in New York. But that he would be, my guess would be traded over the summer. Would be my guess. We'll see. Let's finish up really quick on Quickly. I know we only saw him in preseason. Are you on the irrational excitement scale? Where are you at in terms of wanting to see him and what he could do and all that stuff?
So I remember watching a lot of Kentucky tape, and I was mostly watching for Maxey because I thought that was kind of the guy who was in the Knicks range potentially. And like Quickly did impress me. Like there's no doubt about it. He was kind of the more the leader, Maxey being a freshman. Yeah. I liked what I saw out of Quickly. I wasn't sure if he would just be like too small or what his problem would be, but he looked really good in preseason. The one game he played, like he belongs. Like there's no question about it. He feels comfortable. He looks like someone who has always been the best player on like every team and just carries himself with that. Like he carries himself like a point guard, like he's in control. And it's infectious. Like I think the guys feed off of that, and he's going to be an important part of this rotation. Elfrid Payton has sort of, after all the Knicks fans were calling for his head, like he's really stepped up, and now I think he's kind of cemented that starting position, just the veteran leadership and kind of what he brings. I think
he has too, but we should note for the record, for all the legal minds out there, that Elfrid Payton had a game where he shot 12 of 16 from the field, and he is still shooting under 50% for the year. So,
right. No, you don't want to have the past two games kind of. I mean, really, he played really well in the fourth quarter last night. What he had, like 10 points in the fourth. Like
he had a very nice fourth quarter. I will say that on one hand, I do not think they win that game without him. The Cavs game, where I keep forgetting this pod's dropping 2 days after we're recording it. But on the other hand, he also had a moment where it's like, this is not the first time we've seen something like this from him, where he inbounded the ball the ball was inbounded to him.
And he passed it over to Randall.
And not before he held on to the ball himself for 3 or 4 seconds and then passed it to Randall, who had a man draped all over him.
No, look, I'm not some Elfrid Payton supporter in any way. I just think that he's kind of, I think Tibbs trusts him, and I do too. I think that he's going to be the starter, and I think that Quickly will be the backup point guard, and he'll play backup point guard minutes. And I think I think that second unit is going to be a lot of fun to watch. I think I'll be really excited to watch that second unit kind of come together. And Quickly is going to be a huge part of that. No question. His shooting is the 3-point shooting, I think, is going to really come around. I know the numbers haven't really been there through his preseason and first game, but that doesn't bother me in any way. Yeah. He's got the right mindset, and he's like an attacking point guard, which the Knicks have needed for a long time. So he's that guy. He's a high energy, high character guy. And so, I'm in on Quickly. Is my irrational, I'm not like a 10. I'm not like start this. Well, I'd like to see him start. Sure. I don't think he will start. But he's a guy. We got a guy. Like that's really exciting. We got a guy.
We got a guy. No, I'm just, that's a good place to end. I'm so happy you said it, because that's the thing about that. Again, it was a preseason game against guys who will never play meaningful minutes in the NBA in their lives. But he came out and he just grabbed it by the cojones, and he's like, I'm getting this chance. I'm going to run with it. And I'm not, and he looked the part.
He's got a chip on his shoulder. He's got the right mentality. Like he's gonna stay in this league. That's for sure. Like there's no other alternative for him.
I'll be curious. We'll do another one of these in a month or so. I'll be curious where we're at then, because this team really, I know we started it with some doom and gloom with the defense being fake, but this team really has a chance to, not with this roster, but if they're smart with their asset management, they have a chance to try to put this thing on the right track. And I'm just now you got me thinking, I talk myself into it, but if they do the right thing, if they are able to do something with Randall, even if it's not before the trade deadline, even if it's this summer, and to try to open some of this stuff up, I don't know. I'm excited about where it's headed. Tom, we talked about it a lot already, but can you just remind the folks at home where they could find you and your stuff?
Yeah. So you can follow me on Twitter at Tom_Piccolo, not Piccolo. And then, you can read me at Daily Knicks. I'm contributing there. I'll be contributing to Knicks Film School as well, which I'm very excited about. And you can follow Talkin Knicks, the podcast I co-host, and the John Boy Media Network. You can follow us on Twitter at Talkin Knicks. So that's all my plugs.
Nothing else? Nothing else to plug?
That's all I got. Go get vaccinated.
Yes. Go get vaccinated if you can. And in the meantime, wear a mask and be safe. And everybody. Oh, wait, this is coming out on New Year's Day, so I guess because it's coming out on New Year's Day. So I hope everybody had a happy and safe New Year's Eve, and you are getting over your hangovers. Are you? Well, let's finish there. What are you doing on New Year's Eve?
I will be visiting my brother and his family in West Hartford. We'll be doing it all the safe way, but I'll be seeing my 1-year-old niece, and we'll be ringing in the new year with them. So very excited to spend a little family time.
That's very nice.
How about you?
I mentioned this on the halftime Zoom the other day. We are very excited to go get some very good Peking duck for takeout. We're going to bring that home. We're going to eat it before the game. Then I'll watch the game, and then my wife and I will promptly fall asleep at 10:30 is my guess.
No ball dropping this year. Good riddance. Good riddance.
I was about to make a joke about the only balls that drop in this house but I'm not going to finish that sentence because this is a family show.
I shouldn't set you up like that. That's on me.
It is on you. I blame you. Tom Piccolo. I got it.
Nailed it.
Is awesome. If you're for some reason not following Tom, please correct that. He really, I mean, I know I compliment everybody who comes on this show, but Tom, like he's the smartest guy on Knicks Twitter. You're going to be smarter if you follow him. You're going to be smarter if you read him.